Um, I guess that's it. This is my last slide. I'm just wrapping up. 7:39. Well, actually, it did take 1 hour. What do I have to offer? Yeah. So I told you about circular economy. Very simple concept, and it's not really very popular, or it is not. Also, it is not functioning the way we wanted it to function. But we can certainly make it work. Make the cycle work. The missing part is, I'm telling you again, we need to think about or rethink the way we produce and consume. Our production and consumption practices are not sustainable. How do we do that? No one is going to give us solutions as a final solution. Here's the final solution. Everything becomes sustainable from tomorrow. That's not going to happen. We have to change the way we think. We need to be innovative. And we do need policy changes. So that's from the presentation, but just to add it to the conversation, my experience from last couple of years working at the United Nations and going around the world and talking to people, one thing I realized is that the detach or this disconnect between the scientists, engineers, the sciences world and the implementation world, there is a disconnect. Most of us, those who produce research, or it can be engineers, scientists, professors, you name it, we do produce research, we do publish, and everything stops there. And we just think that magically something will happen and someone will take this material and implement something. It doesn't happen that way. We have to do more than just producing research. We have to fill this gap between the sciences world and the implementation world. And this is where the policy part is important. And plus, the socio-economic aspects are actually much more important, or equally or much more important than the sciences. Without that, without understanding these socio-economic dynamics, we cannot do the implementation. And very last point, I told you when I started that this is a very simple thing. And some of you might be wondering that there's nothing new in it. Yeah, my grandma was doing recycling or compost in the backyard. Exactly, that's the point. So thousands of years ago, when we had a very simple lifestyle, it was actually very much circular. Our society was very much circular, but with the technology, we started inventing things, and then things became unsustainable. Because back then, pretty much everything went back to the nature, and the cycle was complete back then, except for a very little percentage. Now we have to go back in there, but with the help of technology. I'm not saying that we had to just give up the technology. So my point is, a cycle will never look like 100% of a cycle. But you can see this thickness. We have to increase this thickness, the percentage of the amount we recycle or recover and put back in our production cycle. All right, that's it. I hope, well, I'm not saying that I taught you something, but I hope that the material and my talk probably made a difference in the way you think. And most of you are from structural engineering discipline. I'm not sure, but maybe there are other people watching this too. And there are things that we all can understand and implement in our lives and in our professional lives too, personal and professional lives, to make these things more sustainable. All right, that's it.
Thank you, Professor Ettiarich, for your very eye-opening presentation. I think there are questions you have to answer. I think because we are structural engineers, most of us structural engineers, some are more related to the construction industry, the construction waste, So please, there are questions in the chat box. Please, can you please go through and answer those questions in the chat?
Let me, okay, I see 8.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, I'll start from the first one. I'm looking at the timestamp. There's a question from Charita. Would anyone here be able to comment on the short-lived, I believe, within brackets, composting that happened with Colombo's waste during the garbage crisis a few years ago? Well, I mean, I think the question is to all of us, but I think I can add something there too. Within my limits, I can say I think you're referencing to the crisis that happened in 2017, the collapse of the Mitramul garbage site, right, dump site, and I think there was a awakening. It was an eye-opening incident, and there were a lot of things I was actually curious to follow up to. In a way, I tried to offer my help too via an email, and nothing happened. I do not know what happened after the incident, but there is something I need to know, because I need to tell you, because 2014 I did an UN-related workshop in Colombo with the help from the National Sciences Foundation. We had the opportunity to visit one of the composting sites in Colombo, close to Peliandala. I don't know the exact location, but I have to give credit to them, because I think it was the Western Province Environmental Ministry. I might not be saying it right. They were doing a good job within their limits. After the 2017 incident, 2017 incident should have been the turning point, but to my outside observation, and when I say this, I had to tell you, I watch news about Sri Lanka keenly on a daily basis. And even after that, I didn't see the momentum. It died down somehow. But I do see, when I look at the map, I do see some plastic recycling and some other type of businesses popping up now. So I'm probably not the right person to comment on what is happening or what did happen after 2017, but there are some things happening much better than what I saw in 2014. Okay, the second question is from my old friend Sujiva. Hello, Sujiva. Is it a question or a comment? It's very nice to hear your voice and see your face, and anyway I had to leave now. Okay, it's just a comment. Well, he has left, but thanks for attending. Okay, well, I'm learning too, because some questions are posted to all and some are privately, so I just read out loud my what my friend sent me privately. Let me try to go to the third one at 8:22. Nandana, okay, Nandana Bursuri. Do you have any suggestions to minimize wastage of construction materials by way of proper planning and design? Yeah, that's a great question. I know you're talking about the. You can still hear me, right? Can someone say yes, please?
Yeah, we can hear you. Yeah. No problem. Please go ahead. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Okay. I heard a different noise, so I'm sorry. Apologize for the interruption. Well, yeah. I mean, let me answer this question in a broader way. Construction material, we call it CDW, construction and demolition waste, is a specific type of waste. In some countries, you have special type of landfills to dump CDW. In other countries, it goes to the same dump site or same landfill. In some other countries, few other countries, there's a streamlined process to salvage some of the material. But let's take one step back. Let's not talk about CDW. The answer to all these questions, it begins with where we produce them. Let's talk about our own kitchen. When we dispose garbage, wide majority of the world, we do not separate them into different types. We call this source separation. If we can do it, if we have the motivation to do a difference, this is where we should start. Source separation is so important. Now let me give you an example. Nobody looks at the garbage. Let's say there is a garbage can. The percentage of different types in a garbage, in general garbage, it changes from country to country, region to region, even from season to season. But I'm just taking some numbers here. If you take a garbage sample, there's about, if you talk about a developing country, there is about close to half organic material. The stuff from your kitchen mainly, and can be from the garden too. This organic material is the material that can become compost easily. Half of what we dispose in developing countries. In developed countries, it can be less, but in developing countries, it can even be some 65% in some countries. In case if you decided to separate them right from the beginning, when you do your cooking, you put it in a different place, and if you can send it to a composting facility, or if you can do backyard composting, whatever you prefer, it becomes a resource. And the same 100% contains about a little bit of metal, like 5% of metal, 5% of glass, 5% of plastic, and about another 20-30% of cardboard. When you all see this in different bins, you see the business opportunity. When you see it mixed in one garbage canister, you just dump it because it's garbage and we don't know how to separate, or we don't know how to see the value. So this is the same advice for the construction industry too. But the point is not complete if I don't comment on the facilitation part too. I mean, it doesn't really make much sense only if you're doing it in your house. I mean, I don't think we have the time to take 8 different bins to 8 different locations just because we love to be sustainable. We can't do that, right? So in parallel, there should be some way of benefiting from this. There should be some businesses who should depend on this. We already know that there is an informal sector, these scavengers. They are working on landfills and dump sites to look for important things like metal, like bottles, like plastic. And if there is a way we can directly send this material to them, it becomes a help to them too. So it's the same advice that I had to give you about the construction CDW too. In a construction site, if you can start separating them, and if you start sending them to different processors, different manufacturers, or different recyclers, there is a solution. So this is something that we had to do together, all stakeholders. We are the consumers and the makers of waste, and there should be a middle layer of different businesses, small businesses, doing in practically involving in collecting and processing. And at the end, it should all go back to the production cycle. Easy for me to say. I don't have a magical answer. But if you understand what is missing, what is lacking, and also if you can understand the business opportunity in here, we can make a difference. Nandan, I think you have another question. Please raise your questions. Yeah, okay, you were talking to others. Muhammad, to everyone, growing cows require more water. Yes, of course. I gave you some example numbers. Yes, it is the case, unfortunately. I'm not asking anyone to eat cow or not to eat cow, but if you want to think about sustainability, there are choices that you can make. If you still love meat, there are many other types that require very less amount of water um, for the production of meat. The same amount of meat, not only the same amount and the look. I'm talking about the nutrition point of view too. If you compare, well, I'm not an expert in that area, but I did some numbers. I did some search on that. Nutrition point of view, uh, lamb and beef, they are very close to each other. Well, I mean, I don't know if the question is about the literal meaning of it. The question is, growing cows require more water with a question mark. Well, it's about all industries, not only about cows. I told you the same example about paper. To make one sheet of paper, you need a certain amount of water because the industries, you have to think about the whole cycle. This is one of the problems in our thinking because we only see the final result. We don't see the process. If you pay attention to the process, you see the vast amount of energy and water involved in all these steps. So again, I'm not really sure what the question meant, but this is what I have to offer. Luxury Jaitilaka to everyone. In the construction industry, we discard a lot of construction waste. What opportunities do we have in producing recycled concrete with construction waste? Yeah, well, I have to admit that I'm not an expert in this area. With another colleague of mine in Michigan, we are actually talking, we are writing a paper about putting recycling material in improving soil in road subgrades. And I'm just taking this example because it has some parallel things that we can learn. When you have a weak soil subgrade, you have to improve it. So there are different opportunities. One is to, I shouldn't say opportunities, there are different alternatives you can take. One way is to do undercutting. You just cut it and replace it with good soil. And the other method, other popular method is chemical stabilization. You can mix the soil with lime or cement and soil gets better strength after that, and then you can do your project. Well, there is another way. There is construction, or actually industrial waste, we call it, from the same lime processing plants and the same cement processing plants. You have cement kiln dust, CKD, and you have lime kiln dust, LKD. This material actually has about 20-30% of the active material that can do the same thing of solidification of soil. So you can use this recycled material with different proportions to improve the soil strength. There are some parallel things in concrete too. So concrete, if I remember right, I think crushed concrete is another material we use in road constructions to replace some granular material. So there are so many options to use, but the problem is about the process. Do we have the whole framework to collect it in the right way, to process in the right way, and then send it back to the final group of stakeholders of those who use it in the industry? And also the final group of stakeholders, are they really willing to listen to you because it's a new material? And there is a psychological struggle too. People are not very fond of this type of new technologies because there is less material to back up the results. But there are ways, yeah, of course. If you look around, there are so many opportunities we don't see because we are not looking hard enough. Okay, there's another comment from Mohammed again. I think this is like a continuation of what he asked about the growing cows require more water. He says, or consuming point of view. Well, I think if I'm not mistaken, I think I clarified this already about the need of water. The amount of consumption of beef can vary from country to country. I didn't pick beef because I like it or dislike it. I just selected beef because from the water point of view, it needs a staggering amount of this volume. It is the largest in any type of food that I know of. That's the food that needs the largest quantity of water. Okay, so the next one is from Aloysius Hetiarachi. Do Singaporeans consume new water? And if so, do you think there can be a factor connected with it for high rate of COVID there? Well, I'm not a medical professional, but I try my best to answer this. This has no basis. Well, Singapore COVID, the numbers are in 50,000 or 40,000, that range, but the number of deaths are very low. It has so many other social reasons. You can actually clarify, you can understand what happened in Singapore with the COVID, with a scientific basis. To my understanding, there is nothing related with new water. But here's what I have to tell you about new water. Yeah, the first part of the question is, do Singaporeans consume new water? Yes, but it happens in two different ways. I think I briefly told you, maybe I didn't emphasize on it. What they're doing now is not enough to replace the whole drinking quality water of the water need of the country. 2 points. One is it's called ultra pure water because actually it is more pure than our drinking quality water or the general WHO certified drinking quality water. There are some industries like semiconductor industries. They need ultra pure water for the manufacturing purposes. You need the right quality for the right business. And it's more profitable to sell some of these ultra pure water to those kind of industries. So that's what the Singaporean government is doing now. But the rest is mixed with their daily supply of water. Yes. And I drank it too. I received 2 bottles when I visited the plant. I still have one of them. The other one I drank, and it's good water, I can assure, because I mean, I know the technology behind it. It's solid, and COVID or any other disease that you might try to link, I can say that there is no relevance. Okay, there is another question posted at 8:46 by Nadun. Do you think that the circular economy concept will work for developed countries? Do they willing to change, for an example, USA? The answer is yes. I didn't pick on any countries. I didn't label any countries as developed or developing when it comes to sustainability or circular economy. And most of my examples had things from developing world for a reason, because I wanted people to see I change material based on the audience. And I'm talking to an audience sitting in Sri Lanka. I wanted you to see things that has happened in neighboring countries and many other countries in the developing world. If they are doing it, we can do it too. That's a message. But there are so many things that are done by developed countries too. I'm not saying all developed countries have welcomed a circular economy concept with open arms. No. Some countries are doing extremely good, other countries are not. In general, the way I have seen it during the last couple of years, Europe is far ahead compared to the other developed countries. They are actually doing things to make circular economy more popular, and they are doing things on a daily basis to improve the conditions. The Netherlands is one example. You already saw that example from the Philips and the Schiphol International Airport. That's in the Netherlands. Excuse me. United States, I have to be careful when I say this. From the people's perspective, yes, I am seeing a lot of changes during the last couple of years. From the policy perspective, no, it is not. The little knowledge I have about this policy sphere, US policy is at a broader level, it has not evolved compared to what I have seen in the Europe and the European Union. Even though European Union and most developed countries learn things how to become sustainable, they learn things from the United States. Back in 1970s, United States actually they had a leading role in the environmental aspects, even to some extent waste management and other environmental topics. But now what I see is some cities in the United States, they are picking up. For an example, New York and some cities in California like San Francisco. There are some cities, they are actively changing their city regulations to incorporate a lot of circular economy stuff. I can give you one personal example. Because Nadun is asking about examples from Western countries. I used to show 2 slides. I deleted them because I thought probably they were not very interesting to the crowd. 2 years ago, when European Union, when they said that they are going to be more circular economy oriented, they unveiled the plan in 2018, and it's not going to happen. It will not be legally binding until 2022, and some parts will not be implemented until 2035. Immediately within 1 year, I could see some changes. Germany, where I lived for a couple of years, when you go to a grocery store, they already had actually a better system, because most grocery stores, they don't give you any plastic bags for free, just to discourage. You had to pay money. After introduction of the new European laws, circular economy oriented laws, I could see more drastic changes. Even the stores that actually offered plastic bags, they stopped it. And there was one other funny example. A friend of mine and I, we were looking for there's something, a small piece of thing that you can buy from a grocery store to do a outside barbecue. It's made out of an aluminum tray. This is not the real barbecue machine. It's a very simple thing and one-time use thing. And we couldn't find the typical ones. We had to go to a couple of stores around us, and at one of the places, the person who sells it, he was able to explain. He said, people don't like this anymore because it's not sustainable. And they had an alternative product made out of wood, completely a wood, one-time use wood, but when you use it, you actually consume the whole thing. It becomes just ash, and it's a little bit better than the material they had before. That's one of my personal examples. And while living in Europe, when I visited the United States in 2019, I remember getting a drink. This happened in Michigan. I usually ask not to have a straw, but that time I guess I forgot, so I had a straw, plastic straw. You all know there is a global discussion about not having one-time use plastic material because the plastic consumption has drastically, it's going mad, right? So anyway, the drink I had, it had a paper straw. This is something I never expected to see in Michigan, because even in the United States, some states and some cities are more sustainable in their thinking than other places. So usually these are more cosmopolitan areas like New York and many cities in California. And these places, people do more things in sustainable way. They have a push. There's a social pressure to, even to the businesses, to become more sustainable. I never expect to see a paper straw in my drink in Michigan, but it's happening because some businesses are being proactive. They actually respond to what people are asking for. So just to give you a last comment on this, or maybe a summary. Yes, I mean, do not look at countries. I mean, some countries are huge, right? Even the United States is not one country, it's a collection of 50 countries. Things are happening, maybe not at the very top, but there are changes. There are changes happening everywhere, from developed countries to developing countries. And just briefly to mention my last example, I told you about Singapore. They actually decided to be sustainable. They included circular economy in their policies in 2019. That's a developed country, or almost a developed country. I had a conference. I was invited to give a talk, a similar talk in Uganda. And guess what? At the same time, same year, same months, Ugandan government was actually actively incorporating circular economy into their thinking too, into their policy sphere too. Different contexts, different parts of the world, but they are actually doing it, all of them. Let me move to, I have about 6 more messages. Well, to Nandana and Ajit, I don't know if I am exceeding the time. I would love to answer all the questions, but anytime you think that the time is up, you can give me a hint.
I think you can go ahead.
Okay, great. Thank you. All right, the next question is from engineer Rasika Nath. To everyone, excellent lecture for one way. I think there's a typo. I think he wanted to say thinking. One way think an engineer's mind, and with mixing of cosmic matters. Okay, it's just a comment, so I don't think I had to respond. Natasha Koralagi, to everyone. Not a question, but thank you for an excellent lecture. Okay, thank you very much. I hope you enjoyed it. And the next one is, again, Aloysius Hetiarachi, to everyone. You mentioned about 1.3 million tons of e-waste out of 70% are working items from Europe. We know some chips in them are very expensive, like those DVDs. Within brackets, technology by Philips in Trimedia, end of brackets. Why not they teach the Ghanaians how to salvage them? Perhaps your advice go a long way. Okay, well, interesting question. I don't know. Well, honestly, I don't know how to respond. I mean, I can say a couple of things here, but I don't know the motivation or the goal of each and every player or the stakeholders. You have to understand the mentality of all stakeholders. So in this big picture, Agblok Bloshi from Ghana, there is this bunch of people, the scavengers on ground, doing the salvaging, and there is this people from Europe or other countries, based on European money, they are trying to teach these kids how to do it in a better way. That's another stakeholder group. And there is businesses who are dumping illegally or legally using loopholes. That's another type of stakeholders. And then there are governments. Ghanaian governments is in this. They have some policies, but it's not really contained because there are some loopholes. And at the same time, there's European governments. They are doing some things to. I am not saying European governments are sending e-waste shipments. They are actually trying to stop it. But the way of trying to stop is not complete because there are some loopholes. And some of them don't know about it, some of them do know about it, but it is still there. So I don't think anyone will actually actively try to salvage usable working parts. Like, I mean, if you're trying to tell me about the chips that might be still in a functional mode, my take on this is it's not economical. You can probably, even if you know how to salvage this, what happens after? Because there is no industry. You can just take the chip, but what do you do with the chip if you don't have a manufacturing facility to use that chip? That's one way to think about it. The other way is there is a copyright infringement too, because you cannot use someone else's chip, even if you're trying to do the right thing here by reusing or recycling. There are so many laws against it. You cannot do that. But dismantling it completely and trying to look for the material, even in the chips, even in some electronic items, there are so many very expensive material, very expensive metals. We call it rare earth materials. And that's what some people are after. I can give you one example. Cell phones. There's about 2 billion cell phones coming into this world every year. Let's just assume the same number of cell phones are going out of business and going to the dump sites. So 2 billion. Each cell phone has some gold. I'm not joking. Some of you might have heard about this before. And if my numbers are right, this amount of gold in each cell phone is worth about 50 cents to $1 in each cell phone. If there is a technology to dismantle this and only go after gold, you're talking about $1 billion of money only from that. So there is an opportunity that, well, I mean, if you dismantle and just take the rare earth material, there is no copyright violation or anything like that, or trademark violation or anything like that, because you're only going after the material. It is doable in that way. But if you just take a chip, I think there will be a lot of other trouble too. One is it's not practical. The other thing is about, at least these two, the other thing is about the copyright issue. So at least these are the things that I see as reasons why people are not doing it. But there are so many other things we can do with it. Okay, the next question is from my friend Ajit Vandabona. To everyone, been involved in this area for a long time, what do you foresee changes with next 10 years in short or percentage reduction of waste globally? Okay, good question. I cannot really give you numbers, but I can tell you about what I think about the trends. There are two things. Well, sustainability is good. We feel good, right? Because we are doing something that we can be happy of, because it's environmental friendly and all these things. But there are two other reasons that we should be really thinking in a logical way. One is the scarcity of material. Well, hundreds of years ago, when we started becoming fans of linear economy, we had actually a lot of things to consume. Resources were not seen as limited material. For an example, water. We never had a problem of water. Even going up in Sri Lanka, I remember we never talked about water as a problem. I mean, floods are problems, but supply of water was never a problem back then. But now, outside of Sri Lanka, about okay, let me just throw a number at you. Globally, about 10% of what we eat is grown with wastewater. I'm not saying treated wastewater, just wastewater. Just a little bit of is treated, but vast majority is grown without with untreated water. Why? Because there are a lot of countries that has no access to agricultural water. There are some parts in the Middle Eastern and North African region. There are arid countries, and there are some parts in Central America and South America too. Farmers are just using wastewater. I mean, when I say wastewater, this is just the water out of toilets, not even kitchens. It's just water out of toilets, untreated. And there is a health perspective, health side of this story. I mean, they don't really think about the health side, because when they use raw sewage, they are just answering to the questions they have. They don't have money to buy fertilizer, so the raw wastewater is ideal because it has nutrients. And in some parts, they don't basically have any water to do any cultivation. So it is just happening. I'm giving you this as an example to explain about the scarcity we are facing. And some materials, like, let me take an example, phosphorus. You need it even in food. You need it in fertilizer too. And phosphorus is something that will be depleted very soon. Unlike other material, phosphorus will not go back to the nature in the same way, and the geological cycle of putting it back in the same deposit, it actually takes millions of years, like fossil fuel. So we will run out of phosphorus if we do not try to invent a method to filter it from our toilet material. So resource scarcity is real, whether we like it or not. The other side of the story is global population and our taste. Global population is growing. Now it is close to 7.5 billion. By the middle of the century, in about another 30 years, it will go up to very close to 10 billion. And at the same time, our lifestyle changes. For an example, the two largest populations in the world, China and India, their middle class is growing. So those who did not eat beef or any other meat before, now they're eating meat. Those who did not drive a car before, now they're driving cars. So our taste, our necessities, the amount of consumption we do for a normal living, it has changed. So it is changing. It's constantly changing. When you add up these two reasons, we do not have a way. The only way is to think about saving the little we have. So my prediction is that it's going to be like this, whether we like it or not. We have to pay attention to this. Sustainability and circular economy. Circular economy especially is so important because it actually encourages us to salvage as much as possible. I am not telling we can recycle or recover 100%, no. And I'm not telling that when we are doing the ideal cycle, we will stop taking things from nature. No, that's a no too. But we can optimize if we pay more attention to places like here, make and use, that is production and consumption. While we are salvaging or recovering as much as possible from the waste, we also have to improve the way we do business in here, how we do the production, and also how we use, how we consume too. So a few years from now, you will actually hear much more than what I told you today. Okay. Ajit sent that question at 9 a.m. And I guess this is my Michigan time. Okay. Muhammad, to everyone again, a question or a comment. Thank you for your answers with humbleness. Okay, well, thanks a lot. I'm glad you you understood the answer, because questions are not very clear to me, but I tried my best. So I'm glad we solved it. And the next question is from SRG Vijayawardana. Will the cost of implementing new methodologies and changing policies be absorbed into developing countries' growing economy? The second sentence is, as per my understanding, developing countries try to grow their economy by any sustainable means. Right. It ended without a full stop. There's 3 dots. I don't know if I'm not able to see the rest or if this is the end, but let me try my best. Yeah, you're right. Nothing is free. I have to answer this question from 2 different angles. If you think sustainability is free, no, you got it wrong. Sustainability is not for free. It costs money, it costs talent, it costs time, it costs everything. But the final result is rewarding because we are doing something better and more efficient. But at the same time, what I have to say is, being circular, there's a misconception about being circular being more expensive than the normal way of living, or business as usual. Okay, let's just compare business as usual versus being circular. Misconception is about, okay, well, circular might be more fancy way of doing things, so it might be expensive. No, not necessarily. Some of the examples I showed you, I had them in the slides for the same reason. And some of these countries are not developed countries, they are developing countries. For an example, I'll just pick random examples. The one from Pakistan. By imposing some restrictions on the wedding ceremonies, I don't think you're hurting anybody. On the other hand, with this simple policy change, you're actually saving a lot of food and a lot of energy. That there is a cost saving right there. So that's about the consumption, right? But, well, I mean, it is actually related to the production too, because even cooking is part of production. And if you think about the example from the Netherlands about the Schiphol International Airport, Philip, it's a multinational company. They're not joking. They will not do it if they don't see a profit in it. The point is, if you do it in the circular way, actually you save a lot of money. And that slide, if you remember that, you could see wait a second. Here, you could see this graph of how they actually saved energy. Being circular is not equal to being expensive. The issue here is we have to find the right balance. This is why my conclusion is about not only about policy, it's about the innovation too. You cannot think in the same way because everybody else is doing it, so we are doing it too. No, we don't have to do that. But we can do things in a different way if you have the right talent to understand what should be tweaked. It's all about tweaking policies, adopting technologies, and all sort of these things. So going back to the question, will the cost of implementing new methodologies and changing policies be absorbed into the developing countries? I'm not necessarily suggesting that these changes will incur any extra cost. In some cases, yes. I mean, if a country like Sri Lanka wants to implement a technology like what the Singaporeans are doing, yeah, it costs a lot of money. But do we have to do that? Because Singaporeans had a different reason to start that. We might be able to do a similar, if not the same, a similar thing to save water with many other different ways. We don't have to do the same things. There is no cookie cutter. You cannot just copy, okay, so Germany is doing it, we have to do it too. That's not the right way to think about it. There can be costs, but there are so many other things we can do just by tweaking the methods and the policies. And even the ones that might cost you a little extra, down the road, you will get the reward for that. From the money perspective or from other social and other points of view. The next question is again from Aloysius at Tiarachi to everyone. Replacing chips are possible. They do it routinely in Sri Lanka for aircon remote, for which we have to pay about rupees 2,000 each. There are videos to explain how it is done. Thank you very much for your very informative presentation. Yeah, well, I mean, I honestly, I didn't know about this air conditioning replace. I believe that's what you said by aircon, right? I didn't know about this. Yes, I do agree. There are so many things that we can do by, because, okay, let me go back to this RRR concept that's popular, or has become popular. Reduce, reuse, and recover. Or reduce, reuse, and recycle. Reuse is very important. Yes, reuse is very important. But if you do reuse in a scale that doesn't really do any harm to the existing copyright and industry laws, it's fine. But if you're trying to establish a business to take components from one particular brand and then dispatch or sell it as another brand, we are actually getting into some issues with violations. So that's the point I was trying to raise. If you can do a repair, I mean, we always do that, right? Even the phones, the radios and TVs, computers and cameras, we always did these repairs. Doing repair is one thing, but technology infringement is another thing. In some countries, it might be happening, but I do not want to endorse it if there is a infringement. But somehow, if you can make a difference by reusing, I think you're still chipping into the growth of circular economy thinking. Okay, if I see it, this is the last message. Can someone confirm, please? I don't think there is any other pages.
Yeah, I think, Professor, that is the last question.
Okay, so, all right, good.
Yeah, okay. So thank you, Professor, and also our participant for the active participation. I think if there are no more questions, we can wind up this session. If so, I will request Engineer Tirunet Tiarachi to propose vote of thanks.